Hello guys, I hope you're well and welcome back to another episode of the Other Girls Club podcast. Right, first of all, I was just about to apologise for not wearing makeup, and then I remembered what a bad habit that is that a lot of women have, myself included, so I'm not going to apologise for not wearing makeup. And also, most of you listen to this via audio, so who the hell cares? And also, if you do care that I'm not wearing makeup, fuck you. Don't test me today, I've not got the patience. But yes, hello, hi, I hope you're all well and I hope you're taking care of yourself in whatever way that looks like for you. I hope you've all had a good week. Obviously, we didn't have an episode last week. Some of you might not have noticed, some of you might have. And if you follow me on socials, you will probably know why. And that is because last week I lost my Daisy. My dog I've had for 12 years. I had to very unexpectedly have her put down, have her put to sleep. And when I say unexpectedly, it was so unexpected. And I'm going to talk about it a little bit today because I feel like I can't really move past it in my content. I feel like I can't get back to normal content wise until I really speak about it with you guys. So I hope that's okay that I'm going to use this space today to talk about that. And I'm purposely not wearing makeup because I do feel like I'm going to cry. Like I can feel myself tearing up as it is. So I hope this episode is going to be maybe somewhat comforting if you are going through any kind of loss, maybe if you've ever been through pet loss. I also just want to talk about anxiety and sort of getting older and stuff in general because there's a lot of stuff on my mind right now. So yeah, let's just have a good old chat and natter, and I feel like I kind of just want to share some really personal things today, and I hope that's okay. But yeah, I lost my Daisy last week, and I know so many of you also loved Daisy. It was a bit of a surprise to me. I mean, not a surprise because everyone loves Daisy. Everyone who's ever met Daisy, ever seen Daisy, just loves her. She's just was such a lovable dog, such a lovable creature. But I think because I moved out and then obviously she wasn't in my content as much anymore, I forgot how many of you really formed an attachment to her, or at least you love seeing her through my Instagram stories and stuff like that. And I think we forget how much we kind of become accustomed to seeing certain people or their pets or whatever it is. So it really did touch my heart to see how many of you were saddened by Daisy's loss. And when I say it was sudden, I mean it really sudden. I literally started that day eating tiramisu pancakes and then it ended with me having to watch my dog die. When Dua Lipa did a full 180, I think she was talking about my life that day. I knew she had been unwell and in pain for maybe the last couple of days. It was on the Sunday, so 2 days before she died, that my dad took her to an emergency vet because out of nowhere on the Sunday evening she was just in a lot of pain, not really comfortable, wouldn't get up, and my parents knew something was wrong when she wouldn't get up for cheese because, I mean, what dog doesn't love cheese? But our Daisy loved her cheese. So my dad knew something was wrong and took her to the emergency vet, and we were told different things at first. I mean, we thought at first it might have been a phantom pregnancy. And then we were told it might be some kind of infection because basically her teats were really hard and really sensitive. So we were told that it might be an infection and then worst case scenario, breast cancer. And my dad let me know that, Daisy's been to the emergency vet, she's in a lot of pain, she's got some really high painkillers. I'm going to take her back to her regular vet tomorrow morning because this was really late at night. I'm going to take her back tomorrow morning and get her properly looked over. And that is when she got kept in, and that's when, it was looking like it could be breast cancer. And that was only the day before we had to have her put down. So it all transpired really, really quickly. It was really hard. It was really weird for me because I was getting all of this through messages, obviously, because I just don't live with Daisy anymore. And so I was trying to get about my daily life and not overthink the worst. I mean, I'm going to talk to you guys a bit today about the way that I kind of catastrophize and the way my brain works. And I was trying so hard to just not think of the worst case scenario. Not, look, if it hasn't happened yet, don't stress about it. It's the way that I was trying to approach it. But it happened to be the worst case scenario, and she had a very aggressive form of breast cancer that just developed so quickly. And when we spoke to the vet about it, I mean, she went through all of the medical jargon, and she took us through all of that stuff. And I will say the vet, absolutely brilliant. She was so sensitive with us and with Daisy as well, and you could just tell she really, really cared about what she did. And I just think that's so important, because I remember when I was in hospital and I saw such a mixture of medical staff. You had people who you could tell who were in the profession, because they really cared about what they did and they wanted to make people better and they wanted to make people comfortable. And then you had some people who it was just a job to them. And those nicer nurses, those nurses who went that little bit of an extra mile. I remember there was one time when I'd just come out of ICU, intensive care unit, and I was in the neurological ward, and for some ungodknown reason, I don't know why, I was rabbiting on with this one nurse every morning about how much I miss McDonald's breakfast, because it used to be the thing I'd get after a night out. And I just finished uni, so obviously it was clearly like fresh in my brain. And one morning she bought me in a McDonald's breakfast, and it's like little things like that like I think makes such a difference to people's lives, especially when you're working in those professions. But the vet, was brilliant. And so Monday night I'm going to bed thinking worst case scenario is that it is breast cancer, but also like we just don't know that at that point. Comes to Tuesday morning, which is where the tiramisu pancakes come in. I went out for pancake day, and then I come back and I literally sit down to start recording this podcast. I was filming this podcast. It was going to be a whole episode about the Brits. I even had like notes. I'd stayed up and watched it and I'd made notes, but it was literally, I just started filming it and I got a text from my dad to say, Daisy's pain has got a lot worse. She's not been able to go to the bathroom, pass urine. She's just in so much pain, and that is with her being on insane amount of medication. She was on morphine, and it still wasn't enough to put her at ease. So the vet did say so that's when the vet said on Tuesday that she didn't think it was fair to make her go through another night of that. And that was such a weird message to get, because up until that point, I've been trying not to let my anxiety and get ahead of me. I've been trying not to catastrophize, and to then just have all of the worst fears confirmed, and for it to be the worst case scenario, it was just like this moment where I didn't even have time to almost be upset about it in the moment, because I had to get myself to her. I was maybe like 2 hours away from her, because I don't live near my car in London, basically, without like doxing myself. My car is not parked like where I live, so I had to get to my car, which is like 20 minutes away, and then the drive is over an hour and a half, so I literally just had to act. I stopped what I was doing, I paused the camera, I called my manager, I just said, I'm sorry, things have progressed, it's got worse, I just need to go. And like, shout out to my management team, because they've just been so phenomenal the last week. Like, they were just, Katrina, bless her, she was just like, you go, you do what you've got to do. And in that time where I literally just started throwing things in the bag. I packed nothing of use. I think I packed like a couple of pairs of leggings. I packed one top, because I didn't know how long I'd be staying at my parents'. I just packed one bralette, one top, and the jumper that I was wearing to the vets. In hindsight, I should have packed a lot more, because I stayed for 5 days, but I just did not know what to do. I was just throwing things in the bag, and I just remember that moment of being like, right, well, this is happening, we've got to do this, and I just really didn't want to. I really just wanted to go, no, like, that's not happening, but it was, and there wasn't any time to sort of feel any type of way about that, because I just had to get in my car and get to her. And while I'm throwing things in the bag, Dan, you ever done that thing, where you text someone and then they reply a few hours later, but in that time things have like progressed so dramatically? Bless him. Dan replies to my text from like quite a bit earlier, where I'm just like, hey, Daisy's a little bit ill. And now obviously I know things are like the worst case scenario. And he replies like, oh, hopefully it won't come to that. Let's not stress, blah, blah, blah. And then I voice note him back, just crying. And I was like, it's happening. I'm sorry. I need to leave like London now. I'm throwing things in the bag. Like, I can't even process this. And bless him. This is probably, I don't know if you ever have those memories in your life that just really, really stick out to you, and that you will just like always remember. This is one of those ones for me. So Dan works in Central London. I live East, and I told him, I'm just getting in the car. I'm just going to Essex now. I've got to go to my car. And he was like, I'm coming to you. I just, like, not to come with you, but I just need to get to you and give you a hug before you go, because he knew that I would then have this drive on my own. I'd then have to go through this you know, with, obviously I had my family there, but without him there as well. And he just ran out of his office, he ran out of work, he got on the tube and he came to me, and I said to him, look, I can't wait, like I need to get to my car and go. If you're there, obviously I'll see before I go, but I just need to go. And then he was very much like, if I don't make it in time, go without me, I'll just go back to work. But he didn't make it to my car in time. But there was this moment where I was driving out of London, and it was just the most perfect timing. We happened to catch each other as he was walking back to the tube and I was driving out of East London. And I just saw like his little face from across the street, and he came running over to me. And we literally just did like the heart hands through the window. I was stopped at a traffic light and he'd literally just come and run to me in the middle of the street, and we didn't even have the time to like, you know, hug through the car window or anything. We did the heart hands, and it was just such a surreal moment where I think like I really, really appreciated it. It kind of just made me realise that, oh shit, this is really happening. But it did make me, but it did really, really just, I don't know, help with what was about to happen. Because obviously I then had this like hour and a half car journey on my own. And if you guys know me, right, you will know there is not a second of the day in my normal life where I go without listening to music. I have never, in my whole years of driving, how long have I been driving now? 6 years? In my whole 6 years of driving, I've never been able to go anywhere without playing music in my car. And I did that whole hour and a half journey in total silence. I just couldn't even bring myself to put anything on. Not the radio, certainly not any music, not a podcast, anything. And I'll be honest, it took me a good few days to be able to listen to anything after. But I did this whole journey, and the whole way closer and closer we're getting, I just felt more and more sick. Because also as well, I knew she was in a lot of pain, but I didn't know what kind of state she would be in when I got there. I didn't know whether I would be able to see her and spend a lot of time with her. I didn't know whether she would want to see me because if she was in so much pain. So I didn't really know what to expect, and the whole time where I'm getting closer and closer, I'm just feeling more and more sick. And then by the time I pulled up, I see my dad sitting outside. I generally could have like thrown up over the steering wheel. But we get there, go inside, speak to the vet. She kind of explains face to face to me, because obviously this has all been through my dad, bless him. She explains face to face to me everything that's going on, just really getting across to me how much pain Daisy is in. Like, you know, the cancer has developed so quickly. She's in so much pain that she can't even like squat down to go to the toilet. She's not passed urine in a few days, but then because she's so swollen in her vulva, they couldn't put a catheter in. They'd have to put her to sleep just to put a catheter in. And all of it was just so unfair. But the vet was brilliant, because I've never done this before. I didn't know what it was going to be like. My dad said the appointment was for 3 p.m, so I bombed it down the M11 to get there. And I didn't know whether it was going to be like, it was a hard cut appointment where like they give her the injection and it happens at a certain time. And I just didn't know what to expect, because like I've never ever been through that. But she was brilliant, and we were still waiting on like more family to arrive. My stepmom was driving to us, so she very much just said, look, I can bring Daisy in, you can have a few hours with her while, you know, the rest of your family gets here, and we're open till 7, so it just has to be done by then, but like take your time, like this is your time, which I really, really appreciated. And they brought her in, and I had a few hours with her before the rest of my family got there, and like just seeing her, I remember hearing her little claws. They brought her in through the courtyard, so I just remember hearing her little claws on the drive, and I'm thinking, I know who that is. I know that sound. And she walked up to us through the back door, and like her happy little face when she saw that, you know, me and my dad had arrived, and that was so comforting, because I was so worried at what state I was going to see her in at the end, and she was in a lot of pain, and that was really hard to see. There was one point where, because she come in, we got her comfy, and she was just crying at the bottom of my feet, and obviously where she hadn't been to the toilet in a few days, I think she knew she didn't want to drink any more water, but she obviously really wanted to, so she was just kind of putting her head above the water bowl, and that was really horrible to see. And it was like, the dog that I'd known and loved for the last 12 years was very much still there, but it's almost like, I don't know, you could just tell that almost like the fight had gone inside of her. And I've never had to make a decision like that where, you know, we decide this is the right thing to do, and it was really hard before I saw her to reconcile with that decision and to give my blessing for that decision. And then the second I saw her and I saw how much pain she was in, I knew it was the right thing to do. Oh, but I tell you what though, that girl, on her bloody deathbed, she was still set up for a treat. She was a Labrador through and through. The vet gave me a box of treats and they were like, oh, just give them to her because I don't think she'd been eating, obviously, as much as she should have been. So the vet was like, there's treats there if she'll have them. The girl down there went through the whole entire box before she passed. And every time I would like move or even just slightly set up, she would look at me like, you're going in that treat box. So some things never change. I mean, she was very clearly my third daughter because she understood the importance of a little treat. I got quite a few hours with her before we had to do it. And it was, do you know what was really weird is it was really nice to have that time with her and my family. And I mean, you probably have guessed that I am the kind of person who I like to try and keep it light and breezy. I was like this when I became paralysed. I remember like cracking jokes in the ICU and in the neuro ward and all that stuff, and all my friends just being like, I don't know, a little bit like, oh, is this inappropriate? But that's just kind of how I am in those situations. And we were all just sort of like making jokes, cracking jokes around her and keeping the environment light because I knew that the inevitable was coming. And that there would be a time and a place to feel what I needed to feel. But it was nice just to have that lightness around her and my family until we had to deal with, that final moment. But obviously the time did come when they had to do it. And it's really odd because obviously I feel like most of us have all seen Marley and Me, right? And we all have some idea of what euthanasia looks like. And in some ways it was what I expected. And in some ways it was really different. It was it was very peaceful, I'll say that. She literally it was like 1 second she was there and then you just slowly sort of watched her like drift away. It was literally just like she was going to... So from her perspective, it looked really, really peaceful. But then in other ways, it was completely different to what I thought it was going to be like. Like, for example, she didn't close her eyes when she died. And I asked the vet, what, can we close her eyes? And she just said that she wouldn't close her eyes. And I just was really perplexed by that because that's just kind of not what I had in my head, that vision that I had in my head, and that kind of threw me off. And obviously then when anyone does die in life, there are certain things that happen to your body, like you void your bowels and your bladder and all of that stuff. And I think all of that just made like a lot more real than just her going to sleep. That made it a lot more like grounded in reality, like it was death and that she wasn't just being put under anaesthetic. I had to leave the room after it was done and we watched her and she went peaceful. I could not be in that room. I left and I went to the bathroom and I had to pull myself together because I had to try to drive my family home. But not only was the actual experience of her passing so odd, what I also didn't find really odd was afterwards you just go home and you have dinner and we came out of there and my family were just like, I guess we need to eat, like life and the evening just goes on. And none of us, I think, really wanted to go straight back to the house because I know that I was dreading seeing her like empty little bed in the dining room. So we went out and we had pizza, and it was such a surreal feeling because I remember thinking like, oh, it's nice to be with my family. I'm glad I'm with my family and we're having this lovely meal. And then you would suddenly remember, oh, yeah, Daisy's not coming home with us and she'll never come home with us again. And life just keeps going on. The world keeps spinning. Like, we got home and bloody Duolingo owl was chasing me. Like, you will be having the worst day of your entire life. And that Duolingo owl, oh, he's going to get a lesson out of you. I was also meant to be in physio the next morning, but I just could not stomach going in. It was literally, we must have got back to the house because it ended up being quite late by this point. I think we ended up getting home about 9:30 in the evening. I just went straight to bed and I was meant to leave for physio at like 9 a.m. the next day and I just couldn't do it. To be honest, I've only just gone back to exercise today. I had my first session back and it felt really good to actually do some exercise. I go through, right, I have such short-term memory when it comes to exercise, right? Because I've... This is so ridiculous. I've been in the fitness industry for years. I've been doing fitness for about 10 years. And yet somehow I just conveniently forget how good exercise is and how good I feel when I like do things for my body and my mind that are good. Like when I get up and go to bed at a decent time, like when I actually have meals, when I drink water, when I exercise. And it's like when I do all those things, I'm like, oh yeah, shit, all of this stuff actually does help. So I did feel good to go back to physio today, but I did spend, I think it was like 5 days with my family in Essex, and it was really nice to be with them in that time, and also like spend some time away from socials as well, because the thing about being like on social media, right, you get so much support, especially I think for me, because I love my like core community so much and generally had so much love and support, and also like people sharing their stories and experiences with pet loss as well, I found really helpful. But you'll always get at least one person who will just be an absolute twat. And when you're in those vulnerable moments where you're still processing something, where you're still going through something, you don't want to subject yourself to those comments. And you shouldn't even have to be worrying about that, because people should just be able to control their tongue and just not be a dick, right? But you have to have it in the back of your mind that like, right, I just need some time to like not be vulnerable to that. Also, the time was to also spend time with my family as well. But I did get 1 or 2 messages of people just being like, you know, it's just a dog, get over it, like you'll be fine. And it's like, first of all, some of you just need to control your mouths and like learn to respect other people, because like even if you did think that and you don't understand the bond, why would you say that? Like you don't have to be kind, but you also don't have to be a dick. And then second of all, it's not just a dog, and these people I'm certain they could never have ever have had a pet in their life, because once you've had that bond with an animal, especially an animal like a dog, I know obviously people have bonds with other animals as well, like cats and horses and rabbits and whatever, but you know, I've only ever had Daisy. I had another dog as well when I was younger, but once my parents got divorced, other dog was no longer in my life, and Daisy came into my life at this really sort of tentative time for me, where I was spending a lot of time at home alone studying. My parents had just got divorced, and we got Daisy purposely because I didn't have a dog in my life anymore. My family had, you know, my parents had got divorced, and I was very, very recently estranged from my mother, and was also still at that time processing what I had also been through in that abusive like maternal relationship as well. So Daisy came into my life at this time where I was thinking and feeling so much, and I was such a different person to what I am now from when I first met Daisy. And part of that is because I spent so much time with her in her early years when she was really, really young, and it was so healing for me to have this life, this creature, animal, whatever you want to call her, this life that looked to me to care for her and to protect her. Like, I remember, it's crazy to think because what she was like, you know, like as an adult, but I remember when she was just a little babby and we brought her home, and she was scared to go up the corridor to the front door. Like everything to her in the world just felt so big, and from day one she just looked to me as that person to guide her and care for her. And that was a really, really formative experience, and I feel like there are so many other factors that have changed who I am as a person over the years and in those 12 years, but part of that is because of the bond I had with Daisy, and the way Daisy looked at me and the care I was able to give her, I think allowed me to see a little bit more care and a little bit more love in myself, which up until that point in my life I hadn't really seen that or felt that in myself. She saw me as someone who was caring and loving, and that kind of led me to believe that I could be someone who was caring and loving. Even when my accident happened, I remember when I was in rehab and I hadn't seen Daisy at this point. It had been like maybe 2 months since my accident. I hadn't seen her in 2 months, and I was like told by some people in the rehab, like, you know, like, oh, you know, a lot of dogs don't like wheelchairs, like they don't like the wheels, they're scared of them, blah 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 blah. And I remember that being like a really scary prospect to me, because the idea that Daisy would now look at me differently was really, really, it gave me a lot of worry, because I'd started to see people in my life look at me differently, and I'd started to see people in my life treat me differently, and I was really, really worried that Daisy would do that as well. And I had no idea what dogs would be like around wheelchairs. Obviously, I know that some Labradors are used for guide dogs and stuff, but they're trained and whatever. And I really just didn't know. I was navigating all of that for the first time. And like now I know that, yeah, there are quite a few dogs who are like actually do not like wheelchairs and are quite scared of wheelchairs. Like the amount of random dogs I just get bark at me is really sad because I love dogs so much. And then like I'll be like, oh, a dog, and it would just go crazy at me. And Daisy was never ever like that from day one. My dad, for about 2 months after my accident, my dad brought her into the rehab because we had a garden there, and my dad brought her in to the garden, and we was like, we'll just see what she's like with me. And she saw me from across the garden, and I have a video of it, and she just came bounding over to me. You know that thing that Labradors do when they're squealing because they just want to get to you. And she just tried to sit in my lap, and she didn't care that I was in a chair. I don't think she even had any concept of what that was and what that meant. She was just so happy to see me, and I think it meant so much at that time because, as I said, I'd started to see people look at me differently and treat me differently, and I didn't know it, but I was about to go through so much and lose friends, and I was about to have my partner at the time break up with me in the rehab. And I think seeing Daisy not see any difference in me, and see Daisy not treat me any differently and still see me as that person who I was before, really did mean so much. Because even people who love you and care for you and stay by your side, of course they do look at you differently once you go through something like that, and it's normally because they're worried about you or because they love you. It's not because they're looking at you differently in a malicious way. It's normally out of worry or care. But it was nice to just have someone who didn't notice. And it is really weird being on this side of a trauma or a death or some kind of like medical emergency, because my experience of, my main experience with near death and with health has been from the side of the person who's going through it. And a lot of, like, even when I'm like talking tonight, I've realised that I'm comparing a lot of the experience with Daisy with a lot of what I went through. And it's really weird being on the other side of it. And it's literally just like the tiniest insight into what it must have been like for the people in my life to have this like random health crisis happen in their life to someone that they know and love. My relationship to death has been so weird since my accident, and I don't think I quite really realised it until maybe even within the last year. And it's within the last year that I've realised like what a negative impact and what a detrimental impact it's having on my mental health and also like just my physical health and my well-being. Because when my accident did happen, obviously the accident itself very traumatic, and that does things to a person to go through such a big physical trauma with long-term effects to your body. But also like there was a moment after my accident where I did nearly die, and I remember my heart stopping, and I remember them playing Beyonce in ICU. They asked me what do I like, what do I listen to, because they were trying to keep me awake and engaged, and I remember them playing All Night by Beyonce. And I remember thinking like, is this it? Is this gonna be the moment I die? I was only 21, and do you know what, in that moment I was in so much pain that I was ready to let it happen. And that's crazy to say, but when you're in that much physical pain, you do get to a point where you're just like, if this is it, then I'm ready to go with it if this is my time. And I'm very obviously grateful that it is not, as much as I do talk about, my struggles and mental health, whatever. I am so grateful for life, and that I got that another chance at life, and that the life that I live, I am so grateful for it. And I think that can coexist with struggling with your mental health, and sometimes things are like a daily struggle. Things that should be easy feel really hard, and sometimes I think, I just wish my life wasn't this constant struggle just to function every day. I think that can coexist with being grateful to be alive after going through something like that. But my relationship to death has been really weird since my accident, and when it first happened, I remember feeling really kind of somewhat invincible, and I don't know whether this is common for other people who have gone through something similar, but after it happened, in the good few years after it happened, I felt somewhat invincible, and I felt like I was really lucky that I've been given this second chance. And it kind of positively impacted me in a sense that I was like, wow, life is so fragile and it can be taken from you at any moment, and so you should take risks and live every day and and do all these amazing things. And I think like I really did embody that, and I really did live that, and I really was like, do you know what, like I'm not going to wait to live my life, I'm going to do everything that I ever want to do. And like it was like that for a good few years. And I don't know what has changed. I don't know whether it is just getting a bit older, and I'm getting to the age where I'm 29 this year, and I know that's not old, but it is like that weird, almost like second coming of age in like a young person's life, where a lot of people around you are starting to establish their lives, and whether that's settling down or really taking big leaps in their career or leaving the country and all of these things. And I do feel like I'm having that very typical quarter life crisis of like, what the fuck am I doing? And I felt like that for the last year, and especially as someone who is diverting from a very traditional path. Like, I am single, and I have been single for a very long time. I have no interest in a relationship, to be honest with you. I don't date anymore. That doesn't interest me. I really am focused on my community, my family, my career, and seeing the world, and being happily single and trying to do all those things on my own. And it's even harder because of the state we're in the cost of living crisis and the economy. But it's also emotionally as hard as well, and coming to terms with the fact that I saw this TikTok the other day, and it was, if you found out categorically today that you would never find quote unquote the one, how would that impact your life, and how would you live differently? And I thought about that question, and I thought, do you know what? I actually think it would just be the biggest relief for me. And I think like I would just feel like a weight off my shoulders. And I feel like that's where I've come to in the last year, where I'm feeling this relief of, do you know what? I think I would be absolutely fine on my own if I was single for the rest of my life. Look, if I met someone and it happened and it felt right, would not be mad about that. I wouldn't say that I wouldn't want that. But also, just thinking realistically in terms of the fact that, like, that might not happen, because it doesn't happen for everyone. And I do feel like we're sold this lie of, like, oh, there's someone out there for everyone. But that's just, maybe there is, but maybe that's also just not a priority for me. I'm really generally not that bothered about it. But what I am bothered about is living my life to the full extent in which I want to, making sure that I see all the places that I want to see and experience all the things that I want to experience, and do all of the things I want to do creatively in my career. And I do think sometimes I'm so afraid of not doing, being, or seeing all the things that I want to, that I'm almost paralysed with fear that I'll do nothing. I want to be so much that I'm continuously afraid that I'll be nothing. And I'm at that weird age where I'm not old, I'm only 29, I know in the grand scheme of things that's young, but I'm also coming to an age where you are very aware of your mortality in life. And I think maybe just after my accident, when I was in my very early 20s, that kind of felt very exhilarating. But now at this stage in my life, it feels really, really scary. Not just for my own life as well, but also for like the people around me. And I've started to become more and more aware of the mortality of the other people in my life, like my parents, for example, which is crazy because like my parents aren't ill. And it's just been the last few years, and the last year in particular, I just have so much anxiety around, and not aging in the typical sense that we talk about aging with women, not about like looking differently and growing old in that way, but aging in terms of, am I running out of time to do and be all of the things that I want to do and be? And then I get so paranoid that I'm not using my time effectively that it almost like freezes me into doing nothing and being inactive because I'm so afraid. And I think when I was a bit younger, and that whole kind of like, live every day like it's your last, and always hug and kiss people when you say goodbye to them, or always treasure people because you never know when it's going to be the last time you see someone. That felt like a positive impact when I was in my early 20s. That really made me appreciate and grab hold of life. But I feel like now, at the stage that I'm in, I feel like it's having more of a negative impact on me. And it is making me scared of life. And it is making me scared of losing people and losing my life. Not just like losing my life in the sense of dying, but like losing the things that I have. And Like, I have such irrational fear over so much stuff, and it might be because of the way I was raised with, like, my biological mother and stuff. Like, she instilled so much fear into me over, like, every little thing that I did and made me such an anxious child. But, like, I get terrified just to check the mailbox, and I spoke to Dad about this when I lived with him, and he would have to come with me to come to the mailbox, because I generally some days would, like, convince myself there was a warrant for my arrest in the mailbox. Like, I would have so much anxiety that I'd done something wrong, that there was a warrant for my arrest in the mailbox. And plot twist, there never was. I don't think that's how warrants for your arrest work. I think they just come to your door and get you. So it's completely illogical. And I remember there was one time that there was a speeding ticket in my mailbox, and I just remember being like, oh my Christ. And it's so counterproductive, because realistically, yeah, okay, I got caught speeding. Oh, it's so annoying. I was coming back from Wales, right? And I didn't realise that it was a 60 and not a 70, because it was a road I'd never gone down before. So it's just a simple mistake. People make mistakes. That doesn't make you a bad person. But I think because I've grown from an anxious child into an anxious adult, I am constantly worried that I've done something wrong and that I'm a bad person, and that, yeah, maybe I'm not as good as I think I am. And, like, logically, I have to tell myself, okay, you made a mistake, you got a speeding ticket, doesn't make you a bad person. I did the speed awareness course, and you don't do it again. Like, logically, I know that, but I still get so, like, I feel physically sick in my throat when I have to check my mailbox. And I know that's not normal. I know that's a not nice way to live your life, and I know that's really not normal. And I think it's really, when we talk about anxiety, right, I don't know if you guys agree with me or whether you have different opinions on this, but I feel like the way that we talk about anxiety and mental health in general, to be honest, is really misunderstood in society. We know that. But I also think as well, it's so misunderstood for women, because I feel like when we talk about, as women, having anxiety, I think a lot of people naturally assume I think a lot of people naturally assume that when women say they have anxiety or they talk about anxiety, they think it's related to them being self-conscious, or not confident about the way they look. But a woman says, oh, I have anxiety, I'm feeling anxious, people will probably assume it's because she is anxious about the way that she looks, or her, like, self-belief and self-confidence. And I did feel like that, and I did feel like that when I was very, very, very much younger, when I was a teenager, up until I was about 20. And it's so hard to try and get people to understand that, oh, I'm not just feeling a bit nervous or a bit self-conscious or whatever. I'm sometimes waking up with a genuine belief or a genuine fear of dying, or that every time I see someone, it's going to be the last time that I see someone, or that I've done something really wrong and that I'm really in trouble. Like, I feel it in my whole entire nervous system, that I never feel at ease, I never feel at rest. And I feel like that has only just got worse as I've got older. I felt more, maybe I've actually just got better at recognising it, and because I feel like if you grow up that way, right, you learn to find your calm in that chaos, and maybe I have just got better at recognising it, but I just have noticed it more in the last year. Like, for example, right, last year, my dad's birthday, I went back to Essex to see him, and then this is literally how insane my brain is, right? I literally was seeing him the next day, we're going on holiday together, but I drive back to London. The second I get there, I cry in my car because I'd had such a good time with my dad, and I love seeing my dad, and I don't know, maybe it's just not being able to process that emotion, but I just remember crying in my car because just had all of these feelings about how much I loved him, how much I cared for him, and that, like, all of those feelings are so intertwined with my fear of mortality and my fear of death and my fear of losing everything that I have. And it's not just with my dad, it's with, like, everyone in my life. I have such a fear of it. It terrifies me. And obviously there is a massive element of, with everything that's happened with Daisy, obviously it was so hurtful and so painful seeing her go through that. The loss of actually not having her in my life anymore is really painful. But then there is just this other element that is also her death, to my very anxious brain, also just represents, like, so much more as well. Because I think, like, with a lot of anxiety, right, I feel like a lot of it is very what is the word? Because I feel like with a lot of anxiety, a lot of it is based off like illogical fears, and you have to kind of, like with me and the warrant for the arrest thing, kind of talk myself down by saying, that's not realistic, that's not how things work, blah, 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 blah. But unfortunately, everyone dies. Doesn't mean that the last time I ever speak to someone or see someone, it's going to be the last time that ever happens. It's likely that it won't happen. It could happen, but it's likely that it won't. And I feel like maybe I've been able to tell my brain that, like, oh, you know, don't worry, that's not happening. We're seeing them again tomorrow, or we're seeing them again next week, or, you know, we'll speak to them tomorrow. And then something happens that breaks that chain of telling yourself that it's illogical, and that something clicks in your brain that that fear is real and that it can happen. And so then not only do you have all of the emotions of processing this loss that you're actually going through, it is confirming in your mind at least all of these other fears that you're having about losing everyone else in your life. And that anxiety comes through in such like random ways. Like I went to the cinema Monday night and I was sitting there, and to be fair, I probably should have gone to see the film that I saw, but I didn't realise it was good. It was a very, very tense film. I didn't realise how tense it was going to be until it was too late. But at the end of the film, I had to just sit there in the cinema seat because my heart was pounding, and I generally felt like my heart was going to come out of my chest. I felt so anxious, and I just cried on the tube the whole way home. And I just remember thinking, like, I fucking hate this feeling. Like, I feel like I'm just, like, chained to my fear almost. And also as well, I always wonder, does everyone else think about death as much as I think about death? Because part of me is like, no one thinks about that, like you're having weird thoughts and you're a weird person. Another part of me is like, I can't believe everyone else is just going around and doing daily life knowing that this is all going to happen to everyone that we know one day, and everyone is just like living and doing their food shops and getting on the tube and clocking in, but we all know that this is eventually coming. I literally feel like Barbie in that scene where she's like, do you guys ever think about dying? Yeah, I do. I think about dying a lot. And I'm starting to feel like maybe I'm the only person that does, and it's a really isolating feeling. I feel like I need to go back to therapy. I used to go to therapy. I've had a few actually really great therapists at like different points in my life. And I feel like maybe I need to go back. Maybe this will be the thing that actually pushes me to book in a session, because a lot has happened since I spoke to a therapist. I've done therapy before, and I know it's a really great thing if you can actually get access to it, because that's another problem as well. If you can get access to it, therapy is such an amazing thing, and I think everyone should do it, to be honest with you. What scares me so much about it, I think one of the things that scares me so much about it is having to kind of like catch this therapist up on your law. Like, I feel like it would be, because it would have to be a new therapist. The one that I've had before doesn't practice anymore, but it would have to be a new therapist, and I feel like I would be starting a TV show with them on season 10, and I don't want them to be like, oh, I've not seen the previous 10 seasons, I don't get what's going on, and I don't want them to misunderstand me because they've not had all that context. And the craziest part of all of this, I literally studied psychology. Like, I know that that's not how that works. And yet my brain is like, no, you've left it too late to go to therapy, you're going to be misunderstood. And I just don't, to quote Lana Del Rey right now, but I just don't want my sadness to be taken out of context. I don't want things that are so personal and precious to me to be taken out of context. But other than the like looming thoughts of death, I am generally okay. I would hate for you guys to listen to this and be like generally worried about me. I am doing like okay as I can be, and it's really weird because I feel like I'm back at work and I'm doing all of these things, and I feel that's actually really helpful. I did get to a point at the end of last week where I was like, I kind of actually just need to get back to my routine and my everyday life, and you know, like crack on, because it does help. Especially because I have a creative job, and I'm really lucky to have a creative job where it's like a bit of an output. But an output? No, a bit of an outlet for me is what I wanted to say. What has also been so helpful is just like seeing and like realising what I did realise before, but like having it reinforced to me how many amazing people that I have in my life, like my community on and offline, to be honest with you. I've had so much lovely support from like you guys online and like, you know, through Instagram and everything like that, but also like my offline community. So I'm talking about like my family, of course, yes, but also like my friends. Like Like, my friends have really done so much for me this week, and they always have do. My friends are always so helpful for me, and I feel like I'm really, really lucky, because as someone with a physical disability, having like friends and chosen family and people in your life who can actually like physically help you is so, so important, because there are times when I do need that like physical support, physical help. It does just make my life easier. It means that I can do more things and have a bit more ease off my mind, and like I'm really lucky to have people in my life who will happily take a bit of that load off me. Like obviously Dan running out to meet me is just like the sweetest thing, but also when I came back to London, I met my friends on a Saturday night. We went out, we got dinner, and then we came straight back and we tackled the flat, because obviously I told you guys I had to just ditch the flat, leave it for 5 days. I had fish in my fridge that had gone off. The flat was just messy because I wasn't expecting to just like have to leave in the middle of the work day. So there was all of that stuff, and they came over and they helped me deal with all of that. They like cleaned my flat up for me. We because they came with me, and we made sure that I had the food shops. I had all food in the house. DJ cleaned my bathroom floor, which honestly, fucking angel, because I hate that job. Cleaning the bathroom floor is the worst job in the entire world. Really hate it. And like they even just brought me like White Monster and even tiramisu, which reminded me it's in the fridge. I'm going to go eat it after I've recorded this for a little treat. And like flowers and stuff to brighten up my flat. So even though there is so much anxiety and I think darkness around like all of these very complex things that we go through in life, I do get reminded at like moments like this how lucky I am, how lucky, I don't know why I said that like that, but how lucky I am to have all of that lightness at the same time in my life. I really am truly so grateful for that, and community is so, so important. And I made a TikTok about this last night because I feel like we're losing the art of community, and I've seen people on TikTok say things like, you know, whatever happened to community and blah 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 blah. But then at the same time, I do see certain people on TikTok and groups of people on TikTok who don't want to leave their bedrooms. They don't want to go meet up with their friends. They're too lazy to maintain those friendships. Sorry, maybe lazy is a bit judgmental. A lot of people are too tired to maintain those relationships, and they think that making that extra effort or going that extra mile is going to be draining on their energy. But I really do feel like when appropriately exercised, making that effort with people in your life is only going to help regenerate your energy. Like, yes, obviously if you're going out every night and you're stretching yourself, seeing people and doing things with people, of course that is absolutely going to be a drain on your energy. Sometimes you do have to leave your house, go meet up with your friends, and you have to maintain those relationships, otherwise you won't notice it. But maybe this will be controversial. Maybe this will be controversial for me to say, but I do feel like there are some people who are setting up so many boundaries in their life, you're gonna corner yourself off into isolation. Boundaries are very, very important. Yes, absolutely they are. But also, I do feel like there is a kind of TikTokification around the term boundaries, around so many other like psychological terms as well and psychiatry terms. And we're misusing them, and we've got confused with boundaries and living individualistically. It's important to have boundaries, but I think living individualistically is leading to us being very, very unhappy. I think it's very, very important to have boundaries, yes, but I do think living so hyper individualistically is leading to us living a very unhappy life. And look, if you're like, I don't care about that, communities, it's not important to me, I've got my friends and I'll see them when I see them. If you're fine with that, truly, honestly, hats off to you, that's fine. But I do feel like so many of us benefit so greatly and really need that strong community in our life. Maybe I feel it more because I'm more vulnerable, I'm disabled, and I do need that support more. Like, that could be a massive reason for it. But I have no interest in living my life in an individualistic way. Doesn't make me happy, it's not what I want. And so I will happily put myself out there for the people that I love. And also as well, because like I just want to make their lives easier. Like when my friends come over to clean my bathroom floor on Saturday night, they're not doing that because that's the best thing they want to be doing on the Saturday night, but they're doing it because someone that is in their community and they love and care for is in need, and they want to offer what they can to ease the load off that person. That just kind of how, I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe that's just me, but that is just kind of how I think really treasured relationships should be. I think partly that is because, I think partly why I think that is, actually, not even partly, but like massively why I think that is because my dad is such an altruistic person. He's always been that person that would just do anything and everything for people he really cares about. Not saying that he would help a stranger on the street and give him a shirt off his back, yes, but one thing I've noticed about like my dad's relationships in his life is he's always been so giving and willing and loving to other people, and in return when he's needed it, I've noticed that his community pours that back into him as well, and that to me is the best example of how I want to live my life. I don't want to do favours for people and think of them as so transactional and think, oh, well, I gave that person a lift 2 times and they've not done that for me, or they've never picked me up at the airport, or, you know, and I don't want to keep a tally on my empathy and my kindness towards other people, because I think that just completely negates the act of doing it. Bring back altruism, that's what I say. We need to bring back altruism in a very big way. It would benefit all of us. Also, something that brought me so much joy when I really needed it this week. Oh my god, the Off the Menu podcast. I just love it in general, because you guys know I love James Acaster. He's my favourite comedian, probably one of my favourite just entertainers. But him and Ed did an episode with David Tennant, and I was like, oh my god, my favourite men in one episode. They knew exactly who I needed this week. And that was just so funny. After you finish listening to this, you need to go listen to that, because it is a cracking episode. And David's off menu was so spot on. I was so proud of him. I think I might try and make his dessert this weekend. I think about what my off-menu would be so often. Sorry, I know it's such a tangent. I've gone from talking about, like, death and confessing to you how much I think about mortality to being like, I also really worry about what my off-the-menu would be. But do you not? Do you not lie awake at night and think, God, if James Acaster and Ed Gamble call me up tomorrow to do their poddy, like that would ever happen, if they did, what would my bloody menu be? I don't know. It stresses me out. It does stress me out. We know tiramisu would be my dessert, though. We all know that. Oh, do you know what else I'm loving music-wise right now as well? I've been really struggling to listen to music since we lost Daisy. I don't know, like, I remember trying to listen to Pitbull the day after because I was so sick of crying. My face actually physically hurt from how much I was crying. Like, right, I'll put a bit of Pitbull on, he always sorts me out. And I couldn't, it felt inappropriate. And I've been listening to music more and more as, like, you know, time has gone on, the week's gone on. But I really love that track from the new Bridget Jones movie, by Olivia Dean. She's like, we could go back to the old place. That one. I love that song. I feel like when I'm listening to it, I'm having my, like, second coming of age rom-com movie girl moment. I had it on in the car driving back to London, and I was, like, down there crying my eyes out. As we have figured, it don't take a lot for me to be crying my eyes out. But I was crying my eyes out nonetheless, because I love it. It's got such a vibe to it. Listening to it in the car with the sun shining down on me behind the steering wheel, and I'm like, girl, who's gonna be okay vibes. Like, that was literally me. I still haven't listened to Lady Gaga's new album. I do love me some Gaga, but I'm just not in a state to listen to it right now. So maybe I will try and listen to it this weekend, and then next time I speak to you, or maybe I'll send out a newsletter, my review of the album, because I'm so excited to have Gaga back. And also to have Gaga back and be like a fucking Cara be weird. I was a little monster when I was, but also I was a little monster. No, I was a little monster Lady Gaga stan in brackets. When I was like 13, I went to the Monster Ball tour and was raised on Madonna, and then after Madonna, Lady Gaga was the next artist that I got really into. And after that, it was Beyonce. So yeah, I've been a fan of Lady Gaga for a really long time. I haven't always been there for all of the drops and stuff like that. Like, I've not kept up with, like, I think like when it was Joanne, I kind of did, yeah, that sort of passed me by, that era. But I am so excited about this era, and I need to listen to Mayhem. I want to get myself in a good headspace and, like, fully experience the album. Maybe that's how I'm going to chase joy this week. I know we end every single podcast episode by asking the guest, or me asking myself, how are we chasing joy this week? And I feel like it feels like a weird question to ask myself, but maybe I think we need it more than ever. So how I'm chasing joy this week, I'm going to Manchester this week. The gay quarter, the gay village. You can tell I don't know Manchester very well, but I know that's where I'm going. I'm going to the Gaydar Awards with Shu, which will be really fun. That would be like a nice, fun activity. I'm going with Dom, and maybe I'll get ready, listen to a bit of Lady Gaga, have a little drink, and just try and like have some fun again. That would be really, really nice to just have like a fun weekend and really enjoy it. But I'm so sorry that I've spent this whole episode basically treating you like a therapist. I promise I will find a real therapist. I feel like that scene in Sex and the City where she's like, I don't need a therapist, I got you guys. And then they're like, oh, honey, like, we're just as fucked as you are. Yeah, that's me and you guys. Love ya. But yeah, I'm so sorry this podcast was just kind of a bit of a low mood, but I really do feel like I just needed to get this off my chest and use this space to vent this week. And that's just what I needed. And I hope some of you maybe took some comfort or anything from that, or if not, it just gave you a better insight into my little world and how I'm kind of feeling right now. But I hope you guys have a fantastic week. I hope you chase joy. Let me know in the comments as always how you are chasing joy. And I will see you next week in the next episode. Okay, bye. Thanks for listening.